I want to talk about the food medicine plan. Now, I first came across this plan when I was diagnosed with a metastatic triple negative breast cancer and lymphoma, which the doctors gave me a few months to live. And for me, really stepping into the power of my life and taking responsibility for it, that I came across what I'm sharing with you now and what I continue to offer in the detoxification pathway. And so let's get to it. We're going to talk about how the food medicine plan, the cellular support, the immune support, so I'm reading here, the amino acid gut microbiome resets, the hormone influence of it, how it works with the mind, how it works with the neurotransmitters of habit, how it works as an anti-inflammatory, and all of these type of really amazing things, and also a little bit of the vibrational components around it too. So the food medicine plan title came up where I really started to understand and see and sense the importance to actually start looking at food as medicine rather than it being something that we sedate our stresses with or self-regulate. I was definitely an emotional eater, sometimes still am, I still fall off the wagon, but a big part of really understanding how this works is using it as a medicine. And that's why it's called the food medicine plan, is because especially when we come into detoxifications, even the word detox already has in somewhat like a negative connotation around, oh God, okay, it's like, oh, a bit of a weight. But when we can reframe it and actually going, well, I'm not detoxing, I'm actually going to commit to working with medicine that is food within this plan. And it helps the mind, and I feel really important to start there. So the food medicine plan ultimately works with the cells, right? We're working on a very, very unique alchemy of cell structure and how they work. So the overarching process of the food medicine plan is to remove glucose from the system and really get the body starting to function from an amino acid and fat burning cycles. Now, there's a couple of little highlights here of people that can and can't do that. The one major thing is if you have kidney dysfunction, you definitely need to get in touch. But I'm sure through the intake forms, I'll get to know you all and ensure whether this is the right path for you. So we're working on cells. Now, when we start to work on cells, we really start to realize that we're targeting the whole. And when we start to think about detoxification and actually the process and the reason why we're detoxing is we actually want to be able to do all aspects. Isolating to just doing a liver detox or a stomach detox or a whatever it might be doesn't really get to the itty and gritties that we really want to get to, because how the body works is that when we have toxicity in the body, when we have things that are going wrong, what we want is it not to be in the bloodstream, or not to get to the brain, not to get to the heart, some of these most important organs. And so what the body does, it does push it into the tissues, into the joints, into the extremities, areas that are probably the first to go down, like the little pawns on a chessboard, right? And so when we start to actually go, all right, well, I'm going to do a whole body detox, we also are getting to these areas as well as the liver, as well as the stomach, because when we put a few cells together, we get tissues. When we put a few tissues together, we get an organ. When we put a few organs together, we get a system. When we put a system together, we have you. And so working with the cells targets the whole. Now, the process of removing glucose from the system will go through when we go through the food medicine plan, but one of the byproducts of doing this is that when we can run off this amino acid and fat burning system, we are removing the immune system's involvement in our digestive process. And when we do already have tweaks that are presenting in the body, whether it be skin issues, gut disorders, menstrual pain, cancers, things like this, we really want the immune systems to start tackling the areas that it needs to. So how it does this is that when we are really functioning on an amino acid cycle, we are, from an immune perspective, looking at these amino acids like thumbs up, we don't want to get involved. You're responsible for every cellular function in the body. You're welcome to be here. Whereas glucose is in somewhat coming from this invader, and the immune system has to get involved to match it up. And there's a lot bigger system that's happening on a cellular level than the amino acid burning one. So the result of that means that the immune system can start tackling these other aspects that need attention. Now, when we are resetting the microbiomes of the stomach and working with things like absorption, and you can generally tell when these things aren't playing out well, because we'll have digestive disorders, things like bloating, pain, reflux, constipation, diarrhea. These are signs and symptoms that the inside areas are not breaking down, absorbing, and relating well to the nourishment of the body. And so a main reason how this gut flora can get imbalanced is through sugars. We create yeasts and things like candidas and a lot of bacteria that actually doesn't serve and actually gets in the way. And so when we want to reset the gut, we really do need to eliminate the sugars so that we can start to grow the healthy gut flora that is needed, working alongside with some good high quality probiotics. I personally think keeping it back down to nature with things like active sauerkraut is the best way. So being able to work with the food medicine plan, you also have access to being able to reset the gut. Now, when we reset the gut, we're also starting to target enzyme activity. We're working then with the acid of the stomach. We're working with enzyme homeostasis, being able to have the right enzymes in the body that are able to break down the right foods. When we are able to have the right enzyme activity within the body, we actually have good hormone function, especially for women that might experience pain mid-cycle or other significant discomfort throughout their menstruation. Clear indication that the enzyme activity is a little bit off. And so this is another reason why I'm a big fan of the food medicine plan, is because we are creating good enzyme activity, we are creating good hormone response, and in relation to that, a good balance of cortisol and for the body. Now, working with the food medicine plan is a mind game mostly, because we are so habitually trained and involved in consumerism in our Western way of living. We can't go into a supermarket fruit and veg store without being tempted with all those shiny little crackers and chocolates and things like that. And so ultimately, when we are eliminating glucose from the body, we have access to being able to start to see what comes up for us around our self-regulation, to our stress responses, because a lot of us actually regulate our stress through food, drinking, bad habits, and so forth. And so when we eliminate these components, there's nothing there regulating that anymore, because we're at a really healthy, stable kind of center that we don't have the capacity to run away anymore. And we get tempted with the imbalances of the mind. And so this is where working not just solely with the food medicine plan, but understanding the frequencies and the energetics and what is really at play here helps. And this is another aspect which in the detox and deep dive pathway, I really do focus on, because the food medicine plan itself is quite easy. It's easy to follow, right? It's really simple, but because of its simplicity, the mind likes to complicate things and so forth. So this is where the daily practice and all the other offerings that come into play. Now, another thing about the food medicine plan, when we start to work with good enzyme activity and good hormone activity, we're starting to also work with transmitters and the mind-body connect response, especially when we're eliminating all of the comfort eating. We're exposing ourselves to certain neurotransmitters that are related to addiction and the cycles of habit, which are things like dopamine and GABA and a lot, which I won't go into now. But what happens here is that when these synapses and these responses naturally start to kind of happen to want to get our fix, our comfort, with the absence of it, but we are establishing a new practice with food being our medicine, and we're creating new scenarios with our environment, we're actually retraining these transmitters and to identify the grounding nature of what is present rather than what we're chasing. That might not make too much sense at this point, but I just wanted to add that in there, is that this all is related on a very cellular level to what the food medicine plan is targeting. Now, anti-inflammatory. So it does work a lot with the omega-3 and omega-6 pathway ratio. Now, we are exposed to, through lots of grains, lots of sugar, lots of alcohol, lots of processed things that are very inflammatory. And this inflammation creates these markers for inflammation to exist, which then on the outcome, I'll create acute symptoms and long-term chronic symptoms. So the food medicine plan is targeting an anti-inflammatory environment so that we can reduce any damage that is happening or any heat that is in the system. Now, the food medicine plan also works with the concept of purification, because it is working within a spectrum that is full. And what I mean by that is, in life, finding one way to eat constantly is not really ever going to serve. But we do tend to have this belief system that we got to find this one thing and we're going to stick to it, and then when life gets more stressed, then we beat ourselves up for not doing it, which isn't the case. And what I want to kind of present to you here is that throughout life, it ebbs and flows with stresses and blessings and lessons and virtues constantly. And when we're at these peaks, we're tending to be more embodied with that of the light concept or the virtue aspect, the Shiva, the heightened consciousness of what we just learned from that big belly of under stuff. Now, working with the food medicine plan is very much the protocol that works with the shadows and works with healing aspects, and works with I'm needing to look at the part, I'm in the lesson aspect, and I'm exposed to the concept of purification, not just detoxification. So what that means is, for us to be able to transcend and get into new heights, we have to understand why this is here in the first place. What is our limiting beliefs that are sabotaging us? And for that process to happen, we tend to be more in the Shakti, more in the feminine attributes or realms of healing. And that takes a certain frequency. There's an energetic at play there, which is in alignment to the foods we eat, which is very earth. We're eating very grounded energy that helps us to stay deeply present in our body so we can feel the stability and the support as we are navigating the illusions or delusions or patterns of the mind. We need that support structure and we need that grounding because we're up against a lot of turbulence. And this is another reason why it is so important to ensure that we are really tapping into the deep, deep cellular structures and memories within the DNA whilst we're doing this healing process, so that we can change the memory, so that when we elevate and get heightened to our next layer of life cycle that it presents, we then recall and have built a relationship and stamina with memory that actually served us well through the food, through the stability that stability exists. I know earth energy, and that story that wants to just attach isn't as strong. Okay, now I know you're probably all going, okay, well, what the hell is a food medicine plan already? Come on, tell me. Predominantly, we eat like our ancestors. We are eating meat, vegetables, salad, herbs, spices. That's it, right? That's it. So anything that is outside of that, we're not eating, okay? And there's going to be a lot of questions that are coming up for you right now. So I don't want to go too much in it, but that's just a brief overview. Is that we're not making potions, we're not doing shakes, we're not having to do too much prep. We're just really working on clear, pure, direct medicine food and journeying through that process of how we adapt and how our body responds and how our mind responds through eliminating the Industrial Revolution's imprint that actually is deeply entwined to a lot of the trauma in your DNA, a lot of the traumas and absences of nourishment, love, nurture, kindness, groundedness, stability throughout a big piece of our evolutionary process since the Dark Ages. Okay, so that's a bit of what the food medicine plan is all about and the benefits that can occur. Now, weight loss is one of them. Before you go, weight loss, yes, absolutely, because we're burning the food that we eat. Skin disorders, yes, there's so many symptoms and conditions that this food medicine plan works with. Again, just want to highlight, it isn't for everyone. So if you do have any chronic kidney disorders, please make sure that you are flagging this with me. And again, I look forward to working with you, and please do reach out if you have any more questions. Ciao!